Hi, my name is Marjorie, and my sister's son threw a baseball at my face. Not by accident, he aimed. And she watched it happen, smiled, called it cute mischief. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what came after. Being told I was too sensitive, watching my own mother laugh it off, finding out my education fund had been drained to pay for his future, while mine was quietly erased. They used my name to get him into a school, then cut me from the family chat like I never existed. It wasn't just a bruise, it was a pattern. And once I started seeing the cracks, I couldn't stop. What do you do when your own family treats your silence like permission? When your pain becomes their punchline? Would you stay quiet too? The smell of burnt hot dogs mixed with sweet iced tea hung in the air as laughter bounced off the backyard fence. It was one of those late March Saturdays in Chapel Hill where the sun tricks you into thinking spring has settled in for good. My sister Valora was already holding court at the grill, cracking jokes with our uncle like she hadn't forgotten my birthday just 3 weeks ago. My mother, Isolde, sat beneath the shade of the magnolia tree with a wine glass that never seemed to empty. I was refilling the paper napkin dispenser, not that anyone noticed. That's the thing about being the reliable one. You blend in until you're needed, and even then, they forget to say thank you. I bent down to grab a crumpled napkin that had blown onto the grass, brushing my skirt off with one hand when... crack! The sound sliced through the laughter, like glass breaking. Something slammed into the bridge of my nose so hard I dropped to my knees. Blood immediately spilled onto my shirt. I blinked up, dazed, and locked eyes with my 9-year-old nephew, Jet. He stood across the lawn holding a baseball glove, his stance way too steady for it to have been an accident. Before I could speak, Valora burst out laughing. "It's just cute mischief. He's 9, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but soft enough to coat it in sugar. I tried to cover my nose with the napkin I'd just picked up, but blood had already soaked through. My mother stood, not in a rush, more in annoyance. She glanced at me, sighed, and muttered, "You used to overreact like that too." I stared at them, frozen. My brain was trying to catch up to the moment, to understand if anyone else saw what I did, that it wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. Jet hadn't flinched. He looked proud, or at least satisfied. If I had screamed, I remember thinking, would they have cared more, or just called it drama louder? A neighbor from across the fence leaned over, eyes wide. "Is she okay?" she called out. Valora waved her off casually. "She's fine, just a little clumsy." My mother didn't offer a tissue. Instead, she plucked one from my own stack and dabbed at my chin like she was wiping sauce off a child's face. "He's a boy. Boy's roughhouse," she said. I could barely speak. I turned and walked toward the house, my vision swimming from the hit and the heat. I passed the kitchen window and heard Valora's voice carrying through. "She's always been sensitive, always makes everything a big deal," she said between bites of a hot dog bun. Later, in the guest room I used when visiting, I stood in front of the mirror. The bruise was already forming, a deep purple hue that would travel across my cheek by morning. My hands were shaking, not just from pain, but from something else. That slow, rising heat you get when you realize you've been slapped twice, once by the act and once by the silence after it. When I was 12, Valora broke my science fair model the night before I presented it. Mom said it must have been an accident. When I was 17, she forgot to invite me to her graduation dinner. Mom said, "Don't be so dramatic." That phrase had become my family's signature, a way to end any conversation they didn't want to have. That night, I didn't eat. I didn't join them on the patio for drinks. I sat alone in my room with the lights off and stared at the ceiling, holding the blood-stained napkin like a secret. I could still hear them laughing outside. A ping on my phone pulled me back. A voicemail from Valora. "Hey," her voice chirped through the speaker. "Hope your face heals quick. Don't make a thing of it, okay?" I didn't delete it. Instead, I saved it. Because maybe it's not the first hit that breaks you. It's the first smile after. I didn't sleep much the night after the incident. Not because of the pain, though my face throbbed every time I shifted my head on the pillow. But because I couldn't stop replaying the way they'd laughed, the way they moved on like I was some footnote in their sunny afternoon, a bump in the playlist. Sunday morning crept in, bright and quiet. I skipped breakfast. Not that anyone knocked to ask if I was okay. I stayed upstairs, listening to the sounds of coffee mugs clinking downstairs, the low hum of my mother's television, and Valora's voice floating through the vent. Something about returning the rented tables. Sometime before noon, Valora posted a picture on Facebook, a group shot from the party. Jet stood front and center, glove in hand, grinning ear to ear. The caption read, "Boys will be boys." My nose still ached. My shirt from yesterday was still in the sink, soaked in dried blood. I typed a comment, "He aimed for my face," then stared at it and deleted it. Around lunch, the family group chat buzzed with a cheery message. "Hope everyone had fun yesterday. Let's do it again soon." Valora added a line of emojis, suns, hearts, hot dogs. I replied, "Jet hit me in the face, hard. That wasn't fun." An hour passed. Nothing. Then, finally, Isolde. "Let it go, Marjorie. He's a child." Valora chimed in. "You're always reading too much into things." Then Uncle Ben, as if summoned by tone alone, dropped. "You've always been the emotional one." I stared at the screen, not in surprise, but in the familiar sting of having your pain labeled as inconvenience, as if being hurt and saying so made me the problem. Funny how emotional only means irrational when it comes from the person you want to ignore. I didn't respond. I just left the group chat. No one noticed. Later that afternoon, I was folding laundry in the guest room when my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, a woman I knew from church. "Hey, just checking. You're coming to Jet's birthday next Saturday, right?" I froze, shirt half folded in my hands. My stomach sank. "I didn't know there was a party," I typed back. "Oh, I just assumed. Sorry if I spoiled the surprise." I didn't answer. Instead, I called my mother. She answered on the third ring, her voice tight. "Hello? There's a birthday party for Jet next week?" I asked. There was a pause, just long enough to feel calculated. "It's mostly for the kids," she said. "So I'm not invited?" "It's not like that. We just didn't want to overwhelm the space. You understand." I laughed, not from amusement, just disbelief. "You mean your other daughter's child. Got it." "Don't start, Marjorie," she warned. "This isn't personal." But it was. It always had been. And the worst part wasn't the exclusion. It was the denial that it was exclusion. People don't forget to invite you. They remember to exclude you. I hung up. She didn't call back. That night, I pulled out one of the old photo albums from the hall closet, the kind with crinkled plastic sleeves and gold-trimmed corners, page after page of childhood birthdays. I noticed a pattern. I was always the one holding the cake, while Valora was the one everyone was looking at. In one, I held a wrapped gift with a small smile. Valora stood beside me, hands on hips, mid-laugh, everyone around her. The moment belonged to her. The camera just happened to catch me in the frame. I whispered to myself, they always said I was dramatic. Maybe that was their drama. I picked up my phone, opened the gallery, and deleted the last family photo I had saved. Later that night, a reminder pinged from my calendar. Buy Jet's gift? I stared at it, hovered my thumb over mark as done, then deleted the whole entry. In the bathroom, I studied the fading bruise under my eye. The pain was dull now, more a shadow than a throb. But the ache wasn't just in my skin. They didn't realize yet. This silence, it was the beginning of something louder. Monday morning came with a cool haze hanging over Chapel Hill. I arrived at work a few minutes early, coffee in hand, sunglasses on. I kept them on longer than necessary, hoping the fading bruise beneath my eye wasn't too visible. But the second I passed Lisa at the front desk, I knew it wasn't subtle enough. "Whoa, Marjorie, what happened? Did you, walk into a door?" I smiled tightly. "Something like that." She tilted her head, unconvinced, but didn't press. That was the kindness people offered when they suspected the truth, but didn't want to open the door it stood behind. I ducked into my office, closed the door, and booted up my laptop. Emails, budget sheets, things I could control. Things that didn't require navigating a family that had turned injury into inconvenience. For a moment, I almost convinced myself to let it slide. Again. Then I opened my phone. I'd planned to post a simple message to the family group chat, a reminder that I wouldn't be attending next weekend's birthday gathering. Instead, when I opened the app, the chat was gone. Not archived, not silenced. Gone. At first I thought it was a glitch. I checked settings, scrolled back, refreshed. Nothing. I texted my mother. No answer. I tried Valora. The message bubble turned green. Blocked. I sat there for several minutes before texting my father. Did I get removed from the group chat? 3 dots blinked. Then, I don't get involved in this. That's the thing about people like him. Silence isn't neutrality, it's alignment. It always sides with power. I opened my camera roll and scrolled to the photo I had taken the night of the party. My face, swollen and bruised, the blood having dried across the curve of my nostril. I zoomed in, cropped it tight, and sent it to the extended family thread, the one they always forgot I was still part of. No caption. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't expect one. The next blow didn't come from the people who raised me. It came from the internet. That afternoon, while I was reviewing vendor reports, the receptionist's teenage daughter happened to be sitting in the lobby. Her voice cut through the glass. "Isn't that your aunt's name?" Lisa called me out. "Marjorie, you might want to see this." She held out her daughter's phone. A TikTok video was playing. The audio was a cartoonish bonk sound effect, looped 3 times. The video was Jet, reenacting the moment he hit me in the face with the baseball. He pantomimed a slow wind-up, exaggerated the throw, then collapsed laughing. The caption read, "My auntie got soft bones." I stared at the screen. 8,000 likes, hundreds of comments. Dead. He didn't miss. Kids got aim. And right there, Valora's profile picture, a comment of 3 laughing emojis. "Wow," I said quietly, more to myself than anyone. Back at my desk, I pulled out my phone and recorded the video playing on Lisa's screen, just in case it got deleted, just in case they ever tried to pretend it never existed. I texted Valora. "You think this is funny?" She replied within seconds. "You're overreacting again. It's just a joke." A joke. It wasn't the first time I'd been the punchline, but this was the first time they recorded it. I didn't respond. I opened my notes app and wrote a line instead. "I used to think shame was what you felt when you did something wrong. Now I know it's what you feel when everyone else thinks it's funny." That night, I deleted TikTok off my phone. Then I opened my laptop, created a new folder, and titled it, Evidence. Inside, I dropped the image of my bruised face and the screen recording of the video. 2 files, small, but heavy. They wanted me to be quiet. I whispered to no one. I was. I clicked the folder shut. I just didn't say for how long. Tuesday started like most weekdays. I went through the usual motions, brushed my teeth, tied my hair back, ignored my reflection. The bruise had mostly faded, but the dull ache lingered like a warning label under my skin. I stepped out onto the porch to collect the mail. I wasn't expecting anything urgent, just another bill or some neighborhood coupon pack. But as I shuffled through the envelopes, one stuck out. Jet Simmons, it read, Chapel Hill Magnet Academy. My house, my address, my mailbox, and yet, not mine. I stared at the envelope for a long time before walking inside. It wasn't a mistake. I knew that immediately. It was too deliberate, too quiet. Like they counted on me not opening the mail or not noticing the name. Or maybe they just didn't care if I did. I logged into my Ring camera history, more out of instinct than intent. The footage loaded slowly, and I scrolled back through the last few weeks. There he was, Jet, being dropped off in the mornings, Valora's husband waving before pulling out of my driveway like it was their own. They didn't ask, not once. Just used my address like it came free with the family name. You know what's worse than being invisible? I murmured aloud. Being useful only when you're invisible. Still seated, I tapped back a few more days to the weekend of the party. I had watched the footage once before, but not like this. This time, I watched in slow motion. I watched Jet wind up, not casual, not clumsy, calculated. He looked up, right at the ring camera, and he smiled. That was no innocent grin. That was the kind of smile that comes from knowing you'll get away with it. That wasn't mischief, I whispered. That was malice wrapped in baby teeth. I downloaded the clip, dragged it into the folder labeled Evidence, and closed the laptop gently, like it might scream if I slammed it. By noon, I was parked in front of Chapel Hill Magnet Academy. I walked in with purpose, but kept my tone soft, Southern polite. Hi, I just needed to verify an address that might have been used on file for a student, I said to the admin. She smiled brightly. Name of the student? Jet Simmons. Oh yes, she said, typing. Let me pull it up. He's enrolled here. Everything seems to be in order. Could I get a printed copy for my records? I asked. She handed it over without hesitation. I glanced at the form, and there it was. My address. My name in the signature line. But the handwriting wasn't mine. It was Valora's. A poor imitation, but confident. She didn't even try to hide it. Even my name was useful, just not attached to me. Thank you, I said, folding the papers neatly and tucking them into my bag. Appreciate your help. I walked out slowly, taking longer steps as I crossed the parking lot, letting the silence wrap around me. I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I just sat in my car for 10 minutes, the engine off, windows rolled up. No music, no podcast, just breath and bone and memory. They always mistook my quiet for surrender. But quiet is where storms plan. That night, after dinner, alone, as usual, I scanned the form into my laptop and sent it to a private folder shared only with my attorney. No subject line, no message body, just the document. If they've turned me into a ghost, then I'll haunt every corner they thought was safe. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and lavender. Not a bad combination, all things considered. I sat on the edge of the cold examination table, trying not to flinch when the doctor checked the cartilage around my nose again. Still sore? He asked, glancing up through his glasses. I nodded. Fractures healing nicely, no complications. He tapped something into the chart. You still dealing with the family situation? I blinked, caught off guard. You remember? He smiled kindly, then reached for his drawer and pulled out a small cream-colored card. I see stuff like this more than you'd think. Lawyers scare people, but they don't always have to mean a war. Sometimes it's just protection, just in case. I took the card. I didn't come here looking for a fight. No one does, he said, scribbling his final note. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be ready for one. The ride home was quiet. The business card sat face up on the passenger seat. Patient advocate, educational and family affairs. I couldn't stop glancing at it every time I hit a red light. I tossed my purse on the couch and opened the stack of mail waiting near the door. A thick envelope, postmarked from the university I deferred from years ago, sat wedged between a grocery flyer and my water bill. I tore it open, mildly curious. Inside was a letter that began, "We hope you're enjoying your graduate studies." I froze. Graduate studies? I hadn't set foot on that campus since the orientation tour. I picked up the phone and called the university's financial aid office. The woman on the other end was polite, efficient, and devastatingly clear. Yes, we show partial payment received via a family-managed education fund. The remaining balance was reallocated per guardian authority. Guardian authority? Your co-signer, Isolde Simmons. She redirected the unused portion to a dependent. A dependent? I asked, though I already knew. Yes. It was noted for a minor named Jet Simmons. I hung up and sat there, the silence in my living room suddenly deafening. I logged into the banking portal connected to the fund. The records were clean. No sign of any redirection, no alerts, no approvals requested. Then I opened my old email account, the one I hadn't used in over a year. Dozens of archived threads popped up, one of which was a forwarded notification. Reallocation request submitted by proxy, approved. She didn't even ask. I dialed her without thinking. My mother picked up on the second ring. "You stole my education," I said calmly. She sighed, like I was accusing her of burning dinner. "Oh, Marjorie, you weren't going back. That money was just sitting there. Jet's in accelerated math. He needs opportunities now." "You don't get to define what I'm worthy of." "You've been working at a desk job for 10 years, she said, dismissive. "You don't even like school." "That was mine," I snapped. "Mine." "You're overreacting, again." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I ended the call. People only ever call it overreacting when you finally say something they can't defend. That night, I sat down with the card the doctor had given me. I opened my laptop, created a new email, and typed, "Documentation request, educational misappropriation." I attached the scanned form from the university, the email trail, and a simple message. "I'd like to understand my options." I pressed send. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a message from Valora. "Why are you trying to ruin everything?" I stared at the screen, took a long breath, and typed back, "I'm not ruining anything. I'm reclaiming what you never had the right to touch." It was early on a Saturday, the kind where the grocery store felt like a sanctuary. Quiet aisles, no screaming toddlers, just the faint hum of refrigeration units and the occasional shuffle of carts. I was halfway to the checkouts at Harris Teeter, clutching a basket with nothing but eggs, toothpaste, and a loaf of bread, when I heard someone call my name. "Marjorie!" I turned to find Rachel Montgomery, a woman I vaguely recognized from PTA meetings years ago. Her smile was polite, but there was tension around her mouth, like she wasn't sure if she should have said anything at all. "Rachel," I said, equally cautious. "Hey." She hesitated. "Are you still Jet's aunt?" "Was," I answered simply, until he aimed for my face. Her expression collapsed. She looked down, then up, then away. Finally, she stepped a little closer, voice lowered. "My daughter broke her wrist last year," she said. "At Valora's house. It was a birthday party. Jet hit her with a pool cue." I said nothing. "They offered us money," she added. "I took it. I didn't want the drama." I met her eyes. "You didn't want to ruin your peace. I didn't get to keep mine." She swallowed hard and gave a slow nod. "I didn't know it had gotten worse." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Some things settle heavier in silence than they ever could in words. When I got home, I pulled the manila folder from the drawer where I kept the ring footage and printouts. I added Rachel's confession to the growing mental archive of proof. I wasn't sure what it would lead to yet, but I knew what I needed to do next. That afternoon, I printed everything. Screenshots of the TikTok video, my own bruised face, and the enrollment form Valora had forged. I took out a plain sheet of white paper and began to write. "To whom it may concern," I began. "This letter is submitted anonymously out of fear, not of retaliation, but of being ignored." The letter wasn't long, but every sentence carried weight. I described the pattern, the minimizing, the escalation. I included the Ring camera screenshots, the printed TikTok, and the enrollment form with the forged signature. I didn't sign my name. I ended it with, "When behavior is excused as mischief, it becomes entitlement. Entitlement grows into harm." I drove 20 minutes to a post office 2 zip codes away and dropped the letter in a blue box, sealing it with both hands. A week later, I received an email from the school district's generic address. "We are reviewing new documentation submitted regarding a current student. If further information is needed, a representative will be in contact." I stared at the screen for a moment, then smiled. Small, but real. That was the sound of glass cracking under pressure. It didn't feel like vengeance. It felt like finally speaking the part of the story no one had ever let me tell. In the stillness of my living room, I replayed the words I'd written in my mind. It's strange how silence stops being heavy once you learn to turn it into weight for your words. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. That evening, while I was chopping vegetables for dinner, my phone buzzed on the counter. I wiped my hands and picked it up. Valora's name. The message was short. Did you send something to Jet's school? I stared at it, then tapped out my reply. Maybe next time he should aim for someone who stays quiet. Tuesday started with a phone call I didn't expect. Hey! Leah's voice came through the receiver, small and cautious. I heard what's going on. I paused. Leah and I hadn't spoken in weeks, not since she stopped liking any of my posts and started replying to Valora's. What exactly did you hear? A beat, then another. Just be careful, she finally said. I felt something tighten in my gut. Careful with what? She hesitated and then let it slip. Valora posted a video yesterday. You probably haven't seen it. She was right. I hadn't. As soon as we hung up, I pulled up Valora's public profile. Right there, at the top of her feed, was a new video. Black and white montage. Piano music. Her voiceover, soft, theatrical, said, "Sometimes we have to distance ourselves from people who don't understand boundaries, especially when those people have struggled with emotional stability for years." She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. The comment section was already packed with hearts, prayers, and thinly veiled jabs. Protect your peace, Mama. Some people never grow up. Boundaries are love. And there, like a slap, was Leah's name. Not just liking the video, but commenting with 2 hands in prayer emojis and a heart. I didn't rage. I didn't text right away. I let the weight of it settle first. Then, calmly, I messaged her. Are you helping her shape this? The dots bounced on screen. I didn't know she'd spin it like that, Leah replied after a moment. She asked me to help with a campaign she's launching next month. Family-focused stuff. It's good exposure. Exposure, I repeated out loud. Right. You have to admit, Marjorie, you've always had moods. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She'd already told me everything with that last sentence. Even snakes look familiar if you've seen them since childhood. That night, I sat at my desk, stared at the empty "What would you like to share?" box on Facebook, and hovered over the keyboard. I had half a dozen sentences floating in my head, things I wanted to say, wanted to scream. But I didn't hit post. Instead, I opened my folder. Evidence. I printed Valora's caption, took screenshots of Leah's comments, added it all to a growing timeline, organized by date, by topic, by damage. I wasn't out to prove I wasn't crazy. I was out to prove they were calculated. The next morning, I called the school district's legal office, scheduled an update call for later in the week, and flagged the video campaign to my lawyer as a potential defamation issue. I didn't expect the school to act on it, but I wasn't staying silent while they painted me into a cautionary tale. This wasn't about truth anymore. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to isolate me into silence. That night, just before I turned in, the doorbell rang. I froze. When I opened the door, there was no one outside. Only a padded envelope sitting on the mat. Inside was a photo, an old one, of Valora and me. We were kids, maybe 9 and 12, smiling, our arms around each other. It had been torn clean in half. Taped to the back was a note in Valora's handwriting. "Stop now, or I'll finish what you started." I came home on a Wednesday afternoon, expecting quiet. Instead, the air inside felt touched, disturbed somehow. My living room was just as I left it, but something in the stillness rang wrong. I noticed it first in the hallway. One of the drawers of the side table was slightly ajar, not wide open, just enough to suggest fingers had been there. I didn't touch it right away. Instead, I walked straight to the cabinet in my office, the locked one where I kept all my documents. The one only I had the key to. It was closed, but not how I closed it. I sat down, opened my Ring app, and rewound the footage. It didn't take long to find. Just a few hours earlier, around midday, the front door opened with a key. My mother stepped inside. She didn't look rushed. She didn't look panicked. She looked like she belonged. She went straight to the filing cabinet, opened it with her own key, the spare I forgot she still had, and pulled out a manila folder. She flipped through it, took one paper out, slid it into her purse, and before she left, she turned, faced the Ring camera, and smiled. That smile again. But this time, it was on my turf. I forwarded the footage to my lawyer with a short subject line, "Violation, home entry unlawful." He called back before I could even walk to the kitchen. "You ready for this?" I was ready, I said, the moment they called me unstable for remembering the truth. By the end of the day, we had filed a formal civil suit for trespassing with intent to interfere and misappropriation of educational funds. No longer just accusations. Legal language, filed, signed, real. It wasn't revenge, it was restitution. The group chat went nuclear that night. "Valora, you're vindictive. This is sick." One of my cousins chimed in. "You could have just talked to her." I didn't hold back. "I didn't take it this far. She broke in." Silence. Then a private text from my father. "Why didn't you come to us first?" I stared at the message, then typed back, "Because I did, for 38 years. No response. I didn't need one. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't scream. I went into the hallway, took the drawer out completely, emptied it, and removed the spare key she had used. I changed the locks that night, booked it, paid it, watched it done. Peace isn't what you feel when everything's quiet. Peace is what you fight for when the noise has ruled too long. The next morning, a notification lit up my phone. Summons delivered. Her legal counsel contacted us. I inhaled, slowly, deliberately. The house always belonged to her, until the locks changed. The envelope was thicker than usual. I sliced it open with the edge of my house key and pulled out the stack. Court-marked pages, stamped, official. Deposition notices. My name. Isolde's name. A freeze order on the education fund I was supposed to inherit, the one they drained for Jet's school applications and Valora's mortgage deposits. The money was never just money. It was everything I gave up, and everything they used against me. My lawyer had added a note in pen on a post-it. "This isn't about dollars. This is about showing the pattern." They built their legacy on my silence, I said aloud, folding the letter in half. My voice didn't shake. Later that night, I scrolled through Facebook and saw the first crack. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years posted, "Family will betray you faster than strangers, and you won't even see it coming." Another one quietly unfollowed me. My aunt texted my father directly, "How could you let this go to court? This is private family business." My father, Harlan, replied, shockingly, in the family thread, "It was already in court, just none of you saw the bruises." No one replied after that. But something shifted. It was the first time he didn't defend the silence. By Thursday, the school had called a formal meeting. Jet's behavior was under investigation. Valora was summoned to a school board hearing. I was invited as a supporting witness. They offered to keep me anonymous. I said no. I sat in a stiff-backed chair in a beige conference room as Valora walked in, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too polished and a look of manufactured calm. The principal greeted us both with a nod. "We've received an anonymous report supplemented by documentation," she said. "Video evidence, medical confirmation, and details of a pattern. We're reviewing it all." Valora tried to laugh. "This is a witch hunt." The principal didn't blink. "Let's begin with the video." On a mounted screen, the ring footage played. Jet's throw. My face jerking back. Blood. Then his smile at the camera. Then the tick-tock. Cartoon bonk sound. His caption. "Auntie got soft bones." The room went quiet. Valora stood, shaking now. This is defamation. He's a child. He was just playing. I looked her in the eye, calm as ever. This is documentation. The principal nodded toward me. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Valora stormed out. I stayed behind, handed the administrator a manila envelope with the printed timeline, copies of all communications, and the enrollment form Valora forged under my name. I labeled it simply, for record keeping. That night, I didn't check social media. I didn't respond to the texts that were surely flying. I took a long shower, made tea, and sat by the window. An hour later, I heard the mail slot clatter. A letter, hand-addressed in my father's handwriting. His script was shaky, no return address. Inside, one line stood alone on a plain sheet of paper. I didn't stop it. I didn't know how. But I see you now. I read it once, then again. And for the first time in months, I exhaled without armor. The envelope from my doctor came on a Thursday. Certified. Signature required. Inside was a typed letter. Clinical, unemotional, precise. It confirmed what I already knew. The fracture had healed, but re-injury was likely with any repeated direct impact to the nasal region. Attached to it was a second document, a legal advisory recommending a no-contact order for Jet, unless supervised by a third party. I read both pages twice, then folded them carefully and placed them on my kitchen counter. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel sad. Not every injury leaves a scar, but some make you braver about getting cut. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with my attorney, David. We met at his office, an old converted house with squeaky floors and the scent of strong coffee. I've read the new documentation, he said. What do you want to do? I took a deep breath, then said it clearly. I want to initiate a temporary custody review. Not for me. For him. David looked up. You want to pull Jet out of Valora's home? I want to give him the version of a mother I never had, I said. He's not the problem, but he's becoming one because of how they're raising him. He nodded slowly. We'll file under educational neglect, emotional exposure, and psychological endangerment. On the ride home, I rolled down the window, let the wind hit my face, and thought about how much noise silence can carry. Saving a child doesn't always mean taking them away. Sometimes it means giving them another door. Word spread quietly, like it always does in small places. Not viral. Not scandalous. Just a whisper passed between school board members, shared in back hallways at church, noted in anonymous calls to other parents. My inbox filled quickly. Some messages were kind. Thank you for standing up. We couldn't. You're brave. He'll thank you someday. Others weren't. You destroyed your sister's life. Blood isn't supposed to take blood to court. Only one message got a reply from me. She was doing that herself. I just turned on the lights. I didn't check who saw it. Didn't need to. Instead, I spent the weekend changing locks again. This time, I also installed a camera that faced inward. Not because I was afraid, because I wanted a record. Because I was done assuming anyone would respect a boundary I didn't spell out in sharp ink. I unsubscribed from family threads, deleted old emails I kept reading just to feel bad, erased contacts that hadn't called me in months. On Sunday night, I stood in my hallway holding the last piece of equipment, a small indoor camera. I placed it gently on the table facing the front door and whispered, "You don't get to walk in anymore." Then I made a cup of tea and opened a book. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. Valora. Her voice was shaky, raw, not angry, just hollow. "You win," she said, "but I don't know who you are anymore." I listened to it once, then whispered to myself, "You never did." The house was quiet in a way that didn't ask for silence. It simply was. Not emptied by absence, not paused by fear. Just quiet. I walked through the hallway barefoot that morning, the hardwood cool underfoot. The blinds were half open, sunlight striping across the floor like old bookmarks tucked between pages of a familiar story. The court had granted temporary custody oversight. Jet was scheduled for a psychological evaluation next week. The school would determine next steps after that. There was no champagne, no celebratory text from anyone. And I didn't need one. Some victories don't feel like trophies. They feel like tombstones. I made coffee without thinking, muscle memory guiding me. It wasn't until I went to retrieve a package from the mailbox that I noticed the thin, folded envelope wedged among catalogs and bills. No return address. I almost threw it away. Almost. The handwriting on the front stopped me. I hadn't seen it in years. Slanted cursive, a bit shaky at the base. My father's. Inside were 3 sheets of lined paper, blue ink, no greetings, no excuses. I didn't know how to stop her. I watched you disappear and told myself it was normal. You didn't deserve what we called peace. My hands didn't shake. My throat didn't tighten. I just read. You raised yourself in a house that claimed to love you. I read the letter twice. Then once more. I didn't cry. I folded the pages neatly and walked back inside. I placed them in the fireproof box where the court papers lived, alongside the doctor's letter, the photos, the school documents, my archive. This wasn't spite. This was record. Later that afternoon, I opened the door to the spare bedroom, once used for family visitors that never stayed. I pulled the old bed frame out and hauled it to the garage, swept the floor, cleaned the windows. Then I painted the walls a warm gray and set up a simple table and easel. I hadn't painted since college, but I picked up the brush like I'd never put it down. I made room not for someone new, but for the parts of me I had to hide before. Some nights, I still heard echoes of Valora's voice in my head, still felt the undertone in my mother's silences, but they no longer rooted, no longer found a place to grow. Around dusk, I poured myself tea and sat by the window. The air smelled like summer, finally giving in to spring, gentle and unhurried. Then my phone buzzed. A message, unknown number. I opened it. I saw your name on the district court docket. Just wanted to say, you inspired me. No name, no details, but it was enough. I looked outside at the softening light and whispered, maybe they finally heard me. The article dropped on a Tuesday morning, tucked between local council updates and a small business spotlight. Chapel Hill's community newsletter didn't go viral, but it didn't have to. Its reach was precise. The headline read, "When Family Court Exposes Family Lies." Valora's name wasn't printed, but her face, blurred only slightly, accompanied the piece. The text alluded to influencer ethics, performative motherhood, and court-documented incidents involving a minor. My name wasn't mentioned either, but there was enough there for anyone who'd been watching the saga to connect the dots. Online forums picked it up by noon. People compared her pastel-filtered content to the legal documents they'd somehow dug up. A popular parenting blog reposted the story with the caption, "How can you brand yourself as Mother of the Year when your son has a behavioral file thicker than your Instagram filter pack?" I didn't comment. I screenshotted it. Saved it. The next morning, I got in my car and drove down the old road to the house I grew up in. Not out of nostalgia, out of ritual. The front yard looked smaller. The rosebush my mother used to brag about was mostly thorn in memory now. I walked up the front steps and unlocked the door with the spare key she still didn't know I'd kept. The house hadn't changed. Same faded carpet, same dining table where she once told me, "Don't ruin the evening," after Valora had screamed at me for touching her purse. I moved room to room. The hallway where I cried into my hands at 13. The kitchen drawer that always stuck. The living room where we posed for hollow holiday cards. I took the lawsuit file from my bag and laid it on the piano. No note, no flourish, not for revenge, just to leave something honest in a house built on denial. As I stepped out and locked the door behind me, my phone vibrated. A voicemail. Valora's voice was raw, fraying at the edges. "You've turned everyone against me. Jet won't talk to me. What do you want from me?" I listened to it once. Then again, just to make sure I heard her right. What I wanted wasn't an apology, it was space. That evening, I sat at the small desk in my newly renovated workspace. The walls were still drying, soft green like a eucalyptus leaf. My sketchpad was open. I had just sold 2 more prints, one titled Overreacting, and another called Drama Queen. I'd started titling each piece after things they'd used to dismiss me. Now I made them pay for the words. Quietly, elegantly. A gallery downtown had reached out, offering to display a small collection. I said yes. Before bed, I packed one of the new sketches into a stiff envelope. No return address, no note. Just a title on the back of the print. Freedom doesn't scream, it simply walks away. It was a charcoal drawing of a woman alone in the woods, her back to the viewer, no chaos behind her. Just space. I addressed it to Valora's P.O. box, dropped it in the blue mailbox near the courthouse the next morning. Then I walked home. No music, no narration. Just me and my footsteps carrying forward. I unlocked my front door, let the sunlight spill in, and paused for a moment in the doorway. This is the chapter I write in peace. The next one, I don't owe anyone a title.